Today's guest has been on here before. She is full of energy, and she's another New York City matrimonial attorney, a divorce attorney. Her name is Mia Poppe, and we are going to be talking about managing reactivity. When we first were brainstorming ideas, we thought about doing it as managing reactivity in the courtroom. But I think that it's not just in the courtroom, it's in what happens before you get into the courtroom, and that has to do with your communication, which is the perfect theme because I've been talking about how we are releasing our first course in the From Fear to Fierce in Family Court series. It's on strategic communication, and it's called How to Communicate with Your Ex Without Destroying Your Case or Losing Your Mind. So I'm waiting for Mia. We just got off a little video call. I hope she figures out how to get in here. But Mia has her own, she's been on here before. She has her own very dramatic victory in family court, even though she is an attorney as well. And she has all kinds of ideas on how to deal with your body language. It is possible. It is possible. But all kinds of things on how to deal with your body language in the courtroom. But I'm like, where is Mia? I think I might have to check on her if she doesn't show up in the next minute or so. But in the meantime, it is definitely possible. You have to co-parent and communicate well with a difficult ex, especially a narcissistic abuser. And I think a lot of people get frightened and they feel like they can't do it. Here she is. Good. All right. Lauren, thank you for making that comment because it kept me talking. All right, Mia, let me get you on here. She is so full of energy. Oh. I hear your video is on, Mia, but I can't see you.
I can see you and I can see me. How can I help this situation?
You can't. We're just gonna go from here. So this happens. It has happened in a while, but that's okay. That's okay. So
it's giving me a note. Video others so they can watch. No, that's not it.
Okay. As long as people can see you, that's what matters.
That's all.
If they can see me too, great. But you're the star for today. So let's just jump into it. So Mia, we had a as always, very lively conversation recently, and we were talking about managing reactivity, and we talked about in the courtroom, but I think it goes back to what happens before you get into the courtroom, before you even introduce yourself. Can you talk about why it's important to understand court culture, especially when it comes to managing reactivity?
Yeah, so it's very important to understand court culture if your case ends up in court, because the judges, the triers, they don't see reality as you see it. And if you abandon what the courts are seeing and what the courts are hearing and how the courts are processing this information, you will be, ignoring the perspective of the courts to the demise of your own legal position.
Yeah.
It will not serve you ignoring how courts really work, how courts really think, and how courts really see.
Yeah, I think I might have told you in the past that Chris came up with a quote that is, if you go into court and you present as Mama Bear, you're going to get bitten by the system. So I think there's a lot of people that come in with guns blazing, like this is how it should be, and they end up doing very poorly.
They do. Somebody was telling me a person going through a custody matter with a narcissist, and the judges were responding to her poorly every time, like she was being treated horrendously and losing all the time. And her complaint was, this guy, my soon-to-be ex-husband, is lying, he's spinning, and they seem to be eating him up.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me because she knew that I had gone through a custody battle in a New York court with someone who I deemed to be either a narcissist or having narcissistic tendencies. And she asked me, what did I do in court? And I said, mostly I cry. And she said, you cry? And I said, yes, I cry, and I feel like the court sympathizes with me, and I feel like the court reporters sympathize and the court officers, because clearly they could see that I, am a strong, intact person. And she says, well, why are you crying? I said, because I'm thinking about my children. I said, how could I sit in a courtroom, a custody battle over my children, and my heart not be broken for these precious young children who are being used by a narcissist, leveraged by a narcissist? My heartbreak for my children was much greater than my disdain for my ex-husband. And I was perceived in that way because it was certainly no acting, Lisa, but my
Hmm.
heart was breaking for my children who I deemed innocent. And I do wonder that when parties come in as mama bears, I understand that as an initial response, but when you settle into really what's being done by the narcissist, how does it?
Uh-oh. Oh, wait, Mia, I lost your volume for a second when you said when you settle into something with the
when
narcissist, and
when
then
you
it,
when
it cut out.
when you settle in, right, after being mad, because I think there's a natural fight or flight when
Hmm.
things really hit the fan. But you shouldn't stay in fight or flight. You should really start to settle in to the reality that's facing your children. And that, I would think, because I've been through it, that's a saddening reality. And I think courts eventually, because I lost for a long time, responded because it was an authentic emotion. I am
Hmm.
sad for the children who are being leveraged and used as little pawns by, a parent, the person they should be able to trust. It was sad to me. And I thought that was an authentic emotion. And I think it went over in an authentic way because it's sad. It's still sad to me.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so now introduce yourself, because it's amazing to hear a lawyer say that she was a divorce attorney, who this is your playground, that you cried in court. So Mia, who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Mia Poppe, and I'm a practicing matrimonial attorney. My office is in Midtown Manhattan, and I work in Nassau County, Bronx County, New York County, and Kings County. And unfortunately, because our terrain is New York, I believe New York has a high prevalence of people who are either narcissists or have narcissistic, personalities. And if you think about it geography wise, why wouldn't a narcissist be attracted to Manhattan and the Manhattan area, right? You can
Yeah.
be a star here. I mean, so it's a playground for that. And, like many people, not only do I practice matrimonial law, but I found myself in a litigated custody matter with somebody who I believe to be a narcissist or have narcissistic tendencies. And Lisa, I frame it that way because I'm not trying to give a clinical diagnosis. I'm just stating what was in front of my face, right? If you have
Hmm.
four legs and you bark, I'm going to say that's a dog.
Right,
And I'm
right,
not a veterinarian.
right. It is what it is.
It is what it shows itself to be.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so I know our prior interview, you shared what happened in your own story, which is incredible and dramatic, and that's been out for a while, and that's on our YouTube and podcast. But now we want to talk about that whole reactivity thing, especially in terms of co-parenting with an abusive person. Like, why is this managing that kind of reactivity in your co-parenting relationship so important?
So it's critical, and the reason why I would say everyone who's trying to co-parent with a narcissist, emphasis on trying,
Right.
Lisa, because it will be an evolving thing, is that you, if you're still reactive, that means, and it demonstrates that you haven't done the work to get healed. And Lisa, just from, my experience as a matrimonial lawyer and my personal experience, if somebody is really dealing with a narcissist, especially where your children are involved, you've been traumatized. I don't I it's hard for me to imagine dealing with someone with narcissistic tendencies and not being traumatized and
Right.
not really having some level of PTSD. And so that's what I believe. I believe it's a real trauma. And I believe that there needs to be a real healing from that. And so you're going to stay reactive until you work with a team or maybe one professional to help you bypass that reactivity. Because again, we got to all remember as parents, we're modeling 24/7. And
Yeah.
so we must get a grip on that reactivity. And Lisa, as I was telling you before we started the call, I said, listen, there is a playbook, and I'll share the playbook. But step number one is accept what is. Because we fight. If you call the guy or woman a narcissist, accept what is, right? And it's just as simple. None of us have expectations that we can walk past a rattlesnake and not get bitten. We don't even have that expectation. And so a big part of it is accept what is, because a narcissist is 100% of the time, they're going to show up as a narcissist. And in my case, because I really believed I was dealing with a narcissist, I actually spoke with several psychologists and one psychiatrist to get a better understanding. And the consensus basically was, Lisa, that somebody who is truly a narcissist, it is a core mentality, a core behavior, meaning they don't really change. Now, I'm repeating what professionals said to me. And what I heard over and over again is that in the rare occasion that a narcissist does change, something super traumatic has to happen in their life. Like they have to see a traumatic event, experience a traumatic event, but all things being equal, professionals tell me that narcissists don't change. So step one is accept what is.
Okay.
Does that make
Uh, wh-
sense?
yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, and that I always think about how hope is what kills us sometimes, especially because people with that kind of disorder often are nice, and you think, oh, maybe they've changed, or they're with a new partner, and you think, oh, maybe they've changed, but it's the same. They're not going to change. It's because they want something. There's
It's
always like some kind of manipulation underneath it.
and so I love what you just said, that hope, because my whole message in accept what is, listen, your hope that the narcissist is going to change, that is fantasy. Like it just is. And the narcissistic personality type, they're using everything as leverage. Everything is leverage. So
Hmm.
niceness is not niceness as we know it. Niceness is leverage for them. And especially, Lisa, for females that you work with, because I'm a woman, and we love to impute our mindset on others. So
Right.
I'm
We
thinking,
project our values onto other people.
we do it all the time,
Hmm.
right? And that's just not the case. It's not true that everybody is nice. It's not true that everybody is playing fair. It's just not true. So accept what is and really move past the false hope.
Yeah. Yeah. You got a question? I'm trying to write it down because I was going to ask you later, but I might as well ask you now. And these are actually huge questions. How do you obtain more custody when the narcissistic parent is mentally, emotionally, and verbally abusing the children? And how do you prove that in court?
That's like
Big.
that's the holy grail question. That's the question that everybody asks who's dealt with the narcissist. And these folks, I mean, they are polished because they want to look good in front of everybody. They are polished. The lies are polished. And so what I've said to so many clients, and this is held true 100% of the time, is I say, just wait, hold your peace and wait. Because when they're winning, there will always come a day where they go too far. Like
Mm,
it always comes. There will come a time when their confidence is up here because they've been winning
mm-hmm.
and they're seeing you and you're a mess and they're winning. And it's just that personality type. Lisa, they always eventually go too far.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I mean, I don't love that we're all in this, but just knowing that it's going to happen,
If
just like they're so predictable in all these other ways, they're going to go too far because they get cocky, and you just have to hang in there till it happens.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And then, how do you hang in there? And especially, Lisa, in the world that you and Chris work in, as collateral professionals. And one of the things that I would say to your followers and to anybody in this situation is, listen, support is a fabulous thing, but choose your support groups carefully. And what I mean is, your support groups have to be helping you towards an end, not a fishbowl for you to talk about the parade of horribles. Because if you're still talking about the parade of horribles and not trying to drive towards solution, how do I crack this nut? Like, you're still too far away from being healed from the narcissistic abuse that you had endured.
Mm-hmm.
So pick your support groups carefully. Your support groups have to aid you in getting closer to your target end. They cannot be fish bowls for you to rehearse and give voice to the parade of horribles, because what's going to happen? Self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
treated so bad. My kids are treated so bad. Well, you're going to get more of that. Does that make sense, Lisa?
Like I'm writing down. I'm like, of course it does. Absolutely. And I think we might have talked about something earlier off camera, but one thing we keep telling people in this space is to stop doom scrolling. Stop connecting with the groups that are only putting out like terrible things about family court, and you're going to lose, and no one believes you, and if you have a rich opponent, you're going to lose, and it's just making things worse. It's just re-traumatizing you. That is the one of the worst mindsets. This is just what you're saying, Mia, to put yourself in as you're getting ready to deal with an abusive person in court. You need the opposite. You need resolution strategies. You need ways to ease your mind, and you need professionals that are self-regulated and can handle what you're dealing with. You don't want negative advocates to keep inflaming the conflict.
And I mean, Lisa, I can't say it enough. Pick your groups carefully. And Lisa, no commercial for been there, got out. But, this is why I love and even refer to you and Chris's platform, is like, I mean, you have a system in place, a system for helping people draft motions, a system in place for helping them connect with professionals, other lawyers, to help them with drafting, a system for, coaching them on how to present physically in court. Like, I love that your platform is really geared towards results. How do we handle this? How do we crack this nut? Because listening to the parade of horribles, like, it's not, like, of course we want to be sympathetic, but it's not going to buy them anything in court. It's not going to get them closer to, as one of your viewers just type, how do I get more time? Like, the parade of horribles is not what's going to do it. But you and Chris really taking them through, for instance, coming up, your coursework on communication. And, I want to segue into that, because communications with your narcissistic co-parent outside of court are equivalent to your communications inside of court, because everything that's communicated with them outside of court will find its way in court, but it will be in court, it'll be reframed and retold, right? So
Mm-hmm.
having effective communications, Lisa, and I believe you have a course coming up, right, on effective communications. It's key, because everything you say in a text, everything you say in an email is going to be, reframed. So I don't think part of the growth and healing process, for some time frame, you really may have to resort to relying on ghostwriters to respond to the text messages, ghostwriters to respond to the email. I mean, like, really, Lisa, they may need a Lisa or some other divorce coach to really help them frame the message in the correct way, because when you're in the new arc of coming out of that abuse, you really don't have those skill sets, because the skill sets have been so muted because you've been so abused. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I'm like holding, I'm trying not to interrupt you, but in terms of ghostwriting, like I feel like we want our people to learn how to do it themselves. So in terms of ghostwriting, I feel like we have this client perk, we call it free check-ins, as part of this permission slip plan. We say, when you have a draft of something, after we teach you strategic communication, send it to us and we will proofread and edit it for you, because we know you are writing to your ex, but you're always writing for that invisible audience of the court, not just the judge, but custody evaluators, mediators, therapists, attorneys for the child. So you have to have what's called clean hands, and for the record to be clean. But the purpose isn't to make people dependent on me or Chris to do it for them. We want them to start learning and getting familiar with the structure. So it's like, fly, little bird, like you can do it yourself. But it takes a lot of practice, and it's an art form. And I know a lot of people use AI. I feel like that's great, but it's a tool. It's not going to fix it for you. And I think that from our experience with hundreds of people, that strategic communication is one of the best opportunities to learn how to heal. Because as you learn how to do it, you will see the power dynamic
Yes.
change in your
Yes.
relationship with your ex. But it's understanding how it works, understanding negotiation techniques. It's not just like, and I feel like not just anyone can teach it. And just to brag a little, I mean, I am a professional writer, and I taught writing. I was a high school English teacher, and my master's is in education. So you really want to understand like how to be a great writer and communicator. And that's not easy.
That's not
So
easy.
just like you're learning communication, sorry, Mia, just like you're learning communication from whoever, like make sure it's someone who's an expert in communication.
That's right. And so, Lisa, because this is so important, I really want to make sure that you and I jointly send an amazingly clear message to your audience, because really, so my comment is, at some point, right, you're going to need somebody to ghostwrite, because the trauma from narcissistic abuse is real trauma, right? And right when you're in the thick of it, especially at the beginning when you're trying to get out. So the shit really hits the fan when you are trying to get out. You're trying to detach from them. You're trying to parent your kids. And listen, trauma has a paralyzing effect. And so there will be some period of time, Lisa, from what I've seen, where they can't do it, and
Right.
they've got to do check-ins with you or Chris. But the powerful thing about that is, if they are working with you, and you're not going to keep writing their emails for 9 months. You're going to be like, okay, Mia, we've done this 10 times. I really think you're ready. You've completed my course. I think you're ready. Why don't you take a second stab at this draft you sent me? Incorporate some of my, like, do you see, like, there's no dependency in the platform that you have. But I want to be clear, people do need help when they are initially trying to come out of this trauma. And also, I'm, listen, I sometimes read stuff that's written by AI, and myself and my beloved paralegal Rachel, we always immediately say, this is AI, right? It just, AI does not today yet have enough human touch in it to really, fly past the sophisticated reader. Now you have to remember, lawyers and judges, we are what you would call sophisticated readers because that's the background, that's the backbone of what we do. We speak, we read, we write. Words are our tools. So be careful with AI. Use whatever you need to use. I'm just saying have some care, but you must, Lisa, everybody must navigate these communications because that's something that's never going to go away. It just isn't.
Yeah, and we always talk about, from our experience, whether you're pro se or not, that your communication with your co-parent can be one of the best exhibits. So when you are presenting as an awesome co-parent and doing everything you can, we know the other side is impossible, but you're presenting as a wonderful co-parent, it starts to show. Not immediately sometimes, but it's always about those patterns of behavior over time. And that's your own patterns of behavior of trying to be reasonable, trying to be resolution focused rather than just engaging in drama.
And it's a lot of with the communications is some of the basic stuff that we read all over about, narcissistic types, is that a part of their communication is to get your energy. There's the whole notion that everybody knows about narcissistic supply. And it's really true. They are going to send text messages, they're going to send emails that are designed to emote this emotion out of you that you're not necessarily, proud of. But it's by design.
Right.
Everything is by design with these folks, unfortunately. Unfortunately.
And also, remember, there's been a power dynamic in the relationship. I remember my divorce attorney said, once you get out, the power dynamic is like 10 times worse. So understanding that power dynamic is tricky. And I think strategic communication is also really hard because people want to do what they've always done. So they want to argue and they want to defend themselves and they feel like engagement is necessary. And so I think recognizing that it's counterintuitive for a while, but just to trust the people who know what they're doing, like your lawyer or us or whoever with communication, like you will learn how to do it properly, but you can't trust your intuition when it hasn't worked before with this person. That's just part of the dynamic of the relationship.
And I love, Lisa, that you said you will learn because this, I mean, you're not going to get this in 1 month. Like, if you're dealing with a narcissist, you are going to need to learn a whole new skill set.
Right.
And skill set, if I had to, just give one word to describe the skill set, it would be the skill set of detachment.
Exactly. It's hard. It's so hard.
Practice for months and years. But you have to get to a place of detachment. Of course, you can only get to a place of detachment when you've healed from those narcissistic wounds, because narcissists leave wounds. I just think people really just need to understand that. They leave wounds, and you have got to work with a professional. You got to work with somebody, right? Somebody, but you cannot go it alone. That's my big message. And that's the message that I tell so many of my clients. If they're describing narcissistic behaviors and I'm thinking, sure sounds like it to me, like I'm asking them about their support system. Like that is my question. Who's with you? Is your sister? Do you have a sister that's nearby? Do you have a best friend? But you need a supporting pillar. Like that's without question. Without question.
And I think the nature of a lot of people who end up in these situations feel like they've been struggling so much on their own that they often don't feel good asking for help. And I think that, at least in terms of a lot of our clients, they tend to be like very well educated. They're very successful in other areas of their lives. And their friends and family are looking to them to be a role model and being like, how could you have fallen for something like that? And so they almost feel this sense of shame in needing to ask for help. And we have a number of clients that are attorneys, and I think they're like, I feel really bad that I have to check, and because I'm a lawyer, that I should know how to do this, but you don't know how to do it. Like, no one knows how to do this. Who's been through this several times? Nobody.
Nobody. And then you have to think about the nature of a narcissist. Like, this was your prince or princess charming. Like, when they initially showed up, Lisa, they were your everything, right? And like, there's cognitive dissonance. Your head is spinning.
Right.
And, you show me a household where there's narcissistic abuse, and I'm going to show you a household where there's gaslighting. So you've also been subjected to somebody, telling you that you're actually making up stuff, like stuff that, that, like, they're telling you that never happened. Like, all of this is terrain that must be navigated. And, but the good news is it can be navigated.
Right. You learn,
You
but you
learn,
need help. You need
but
help. Learning.
you really need help. And I want to say, because I talk about this a lot, that the difficulty that successful women have with this, because successful women are really highly regarded in their communities, and they are ashamed. Like, I run a big corporation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm powerless with my ex-husband. Yes, yes, you are powerless, and so get your team to help you. But it's embarrassing, Lisa. It's embarrassing, and there's a part of you that doesn't, want people to know. Like, it's embarrassing, but you just have to face the music. And by face, we have this expression in the South: tell the truth and shame the devil,
Mm,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
You have to find your team that you can be vulnerable with and say, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know why I flipped out and started yelling back. I don't know why. I knew he was going to record me.
Yeah. When you were talking about that shame too, I'm thinking about someone that we worked with years ago who was a top powerful female corporate attorney. And in her relationship, she would go home and her ex would lock her in the basement with her two babies and unscrew the light bulbs. So she was allowed to go to work, and then she went home and was in the basement.
And
Top
that,
attorney.
Lisa, you saw my body language, my reaction to that, because that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, that's atrocious, right? But it actually
A
happens
lot, a lot.
a
That
lot.
kind of thing happens to the most successful Ivy League graduate, top career person who no one would suspect it's happening. And we know it happens to 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men. I'm talking general domestic violence, not that particular situation.
Right. And really, most of the DV statistics that you just shared with us, those are probably, physical abuse. But, I did some work on what I call invisible abuse, and did a series and so forth and so on. But after my experience with narcissistic abuse, like, all abuse is horrendous, but, like, give me a broken rib so I can let that puppy heal, because, I had to do so much work turning the corner from being in a marriage with the narcissist. I mean, I had to work with a meditation coach. I had
Mm-hmm.
to work with a grief and transition coach, because,
Yeah.
grief is a part of that arc. Like, how could I have been so silly and foolish? And, I want to say this because what I'm very aware of, Lisa, as you and I sit here and talk, and you know how I feel about your platform, and how it lets your clients continue. It is continual, because the narcissist is not going to change. So I'm sitting here with you. The next time I'm in court, my ex-husband will be waving this transcript, because they never stop, right? They just don't. They never stop. But
Yeah.
we have to be so detached that, okay, let him do what he does. I'm going to live my life, and it's of no consequence that this transcript from IG will be, I don't care, because I support what Lisa and Chris do. If I can be a part of really helping more people to find this platform, because everybody can't, afford a Mia Poppe or any other, Manhattan matrimonial attorney. And frequently, when you're dealing with a narcissist, even the clients who come to me who certainly can afford me, by year 3 of the narcissist's continued attacks and your continued court appearance, like, then you can't afford me. And you're wondering, where did, 550K go? Where did it go?
Yep.
Right? And that is how this playing field, how it goes. But it never ends. So the change must be in you, or you won't fully live your life. You just
Exactly.
won't.
Exactly. So speaking of reactivity, let's talk, and we got a little question, and it goes into the next thing I wanted to ask about is, what are the effects on kids with a parent, including us here, who cannot manage our reactivity, especially in communication with our ex?
So, first of all, I believe that we are the greatest teachers of our children, and our children are learning from our behavior way more than they're learning from what we say. But, just because I have kids and I really want to have my thumb on making sure that my kids are very balanced and very healthy, I've been myself just studying this. And the psychologists say that when children are seeing their parents fall apart, like, they develop all kinds of little trauma responses that they carry into adulthood.
Wow.
One of the things that I say, and why you have to work with professionals, you must become a rock for your children. And I really mean an emotional rock, where you get to the point where you allow people to play their own hand, and you play your hand based on your values and your character, which basically means, in an easy way, you don't go tit for tat. You know, you don't move and react because of what the narcissist did, right? Because most of the time, your best play with a narcissist is to ignore them, because, I mean, everything they do is for some evil end,
Right.
because that's all
And
they know how to do.
audience.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and for an audience, but that's all they know how to do. So that's a part of the acceptance, right? That's not a bash. I have no interest in bashing the narcissist, because why would I feel anything but sympathy for somebody who's trapped into their own destructive psyche?
Mhm.
Because, the narcissist in is not just destroying everybody around him or her, including their children, which narcissists are really, really bad at recognizing the collateral damage to their children. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not sure that they have the capability to
I
recognize,
don't think so. I don't think so.
right?
Because they don't have empathy.
They don't,
So
they
they don't
don't,
notice it as damage. It's just like this, I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do, which is why the sound parent must become an emotional rock. And I personally believe that when you become an emotional rock for your children, and, even start saying, honey, that's the way your dad does it. That's certainly not the way I would ever do it. And that's important, because I don't believe in justifying the narcissist's behavior to your children. Like, some people really bless the narcissist's behavior, and they say ridiculous things like, well, because I don't want to say anything bad about their dad. No, their dad is acting bad. I mean, right? How confusing for a child. The narcissist is really misbehaving, using that child, leveraging that child. We all, at some level, begin to feel when we're being used, and your child voices that. And under the guise of, I don't want to say anything bad about their parent, you cover it up. That's not appropriate. Let me just say that,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because people will, like, different professionals will say, well, you should say that both parents love them. And I'm like, I don't think that's right, because if you say that someone who's abandoned the kids, for example, still loves them, then they're going to think, okay, so this is what love is.
No,
And that's not
and
healthy.
that's not. And what I say to all parents is that, listen, love is sacrificial. Love of a child is nothing but sacrificial. So show me your sacrifice, your personal sacrifice, and that's how we'll register your love.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Love is not, for children, it's not about words. It's about personal sacrifice. And I mean, narcissists are extremely limited, if unable, to do that. They just don't have that capacity. And I do believe that we should never bash anybody, but we should not cloud the truth from our children. I mean, that's not helpful. Outside
Yeah.
of Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, we should not be clouding the truth to our children.
Yeah.
Like, how is that helpful? That's not helpful.
Yeah. Great point. All right. So what about, so we talked about co-parenting communication before getting into court. I know you said a line the last time we talked privately about how you love, you don't want to have to babysit your clients in the courtroom. What is expected when they finally get there? How do you expect them to behave when you're trying to make your case and they're next to you sitting down?
Okay, so I expect them to take me at my word and believe me when I say to them before we go in court, okay, your ears are going to hear lots of lies. I expect them to believe that that's going to happen. And so
Mhm.
what I don't expect is for us to get in a courtroom and my client is eye rolling, looking at me saying, I can't believe him. And of course, the judge can see your lips moving. Like, listen, just, you know, most lawyers will prime their clients before they go in the courtroom. And a basic part of the priming, especially if you're dealing with these personality types, are lies are going to come. So when lies come, just let them be who they are. Just let them be who they are, and let your attorney state your position. If you're pro se, really, I got to tell you, don't go in court and wing it. Like, have your position practiced and written out. Go over your position with someone, because frequently, Lisa, the pro se party's position, or what they believe is their legal position, is not something that courts really give ear to.
Yep. I know, and you saying it, that it really has to be practiced. I mean, for me, not an attorney, but as a successful pro se, I can give you all kinds of advice on the art of persuasion. And so, but being emotional, being passionate when you're arguing is great, but you need to understand what you're asking for and why you're there and what the court's capable of and all kinds of other things, but not just, but it requires a lot of
It
practice. And
requires a
again,
lot of practice. And you have to, don't ignore who the judge is, right? I mean, like, this is why, Lisa, you're able to help people, because you're looking 360, right? You're looking at who they are, who's on the other side of the table, who the judge is. You know enough to not only look at who the judge is, but who is the judge's court attorney, which is the primary influencer of the judge's decisions, right? And listen, gender matters, geography matters, right? Like, it really, age matters, right? And so you have to cater to that. So
mhm,
if the judge is, there's a big difference between a judge who's 42 and a judge that's 62.
mhm.
And so the story has to be told differently.
Yep, always think about your audience. And
Always.
as you're mentioning the judge, one little tip for people who are on the stand, which I learned, is when I was being questioned by opposing counsel, I would look at opposing counsel and I was told, you don't need to look at that. Look at the judge.
That's
The judge is your audience. So look at the judge.
Look, so Lisa, like, literally, if we had time, I would have you repeat that 10 times, because, I am the attorney for a client right now who's in custody litigation. Well, I have a few clients who are in trial, not one, but
Mhm.
one of the directions that I gave to this client when they were on the stand, day one of us leading off in the case, was, so greeted her, hello, Miss Jones. Miss Jones, I'm going to be asking you some questions. This is a bench trial, meaning a judge will determine. So when you are answering my questions, really look directly at me or look directly at the judge who is going to be making a decision.
We were talking about how they need to look at the judge when they're talking. The judge is the audience. So go ahead, Mia.
Yes, the judge is your audience, but what you should not do is do not look at your adversary's table. Do not look at them and do not look at their attorney. And that is a firm do not do it. Tell your story to the judge. If that's not comfortable, tell your story to your attorney. If you're pro se, then the judge, or look down at the table, but you are not to make eye contact with the other side under no circumstances. Make no eye contact.
That's so helpful. So helpful. Okay, so Mia, just to wind up, we always go so long, and it never feels like a full hour, even though that's how it always is. But can you tell people how to find you?
Thanks. So you can find me online. My website is miapoppe.com, my business's website, the law firm of Poppe and Associates. I'm also on IG. I have some new IG reels coming out. I think my team just posted one today. I think it's about gaslighting.
Yes, I saw it.
And yes, I'm also on LinkedIn. So it's Mia Poppe _ESQ.
Excellent. Well, as usual, Mia, it's been a complete pleasure talking to you. And one of these days, we're going to meet in person too.
Yes. One of
So
these
close
days.
by. It's ridiculous.
So close.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And we'll do it again.
Yes, of course. Bye, Lisa.
Okay. Bye.